Now it's able to, let's say I locate this out. So I'm just thinking that it's some issue with the, okay. Let me copy my username and password. This is the password that I had. Let me try to re-log in and see whether the connection gets established. Same thing, disconnected server is rejecting this one. Okay. Some issues with the FTP client. I think there's some issue with the software that I'm using out here, which is really strange. Let's see. So this is the FTP client that I do have. Okay, I'll try it out with a different FTP software. Shouldn't be an issue. I can take this tomorrow, not a problem. Let's do one last thing out here. I have to reinstall this out once again. Let's try this out. It's not able to identify the complete path, which is very strange. Let's try out a new session. Let's try out the FTP protocol out here. It's port 21, which is good enough, which is super fine. Let's try an SCP session. And if I am able to establish this out, root. Still no luck with this. It's not, let's say, allowing me to, let's say, log into that particular website. Fine, I'll look at this particular software. There seems to be some issue, and we'll continue with this one in tomorrow's session on how to, let's say, go ahead and deploy this out. Shouldn't be an issue, but what I'll do today is, since we are not able to, let's say, deploy our website, we'll just try to understand how do you build the ARM template for this. Like the infrastructure is ready, you're just going in and trying, let's say, deploy a code out here. I'll figure out another way. If the software is not working, I'll try to see if there's another software basically that is available out there, which will, let's say, help us out to, do the deployments and all that stuff. But yes, let's put this to, let's say, a different day, not a problem. But what I'll do today is, I created the app service, good enough. I created the app service plan inside that, or app service plan and the app service out there. I now want to go ahead and do the same thing with an ARM template. So I want to go ahead and start doing an ARM template or a PowerShell script, anything that, let's say, you're comfortable with, to go ahead and how to create this particular infrastructure. So let me delete all these things out and let me open up a new window, and let me open up a new folder out here, telling this is the web app template out here. So I'm just going ahead and trying to create, let's say, the template for an app service plan and an app service. So I'll just go ahead and I'll say this is class 8 ARM web app folder, and let's go ahead and do one thing. Let's go ahead, say Control N, and load up our ARM language. And I want to now create a template which gives me two different components. One is the app service plan, the other is the app service. These are the two components that I'm, let's say, really looking at to go ahead and, let's say, create out here. So let me go ahead, open this out, and I'll say ARM exclamation. This will now load me a blank JSON template. It's a blank template that I do have. And earlier when we were doing, let's say, the virtual machines out here, I said it was ARM hyphen Windows VM and all these things out. Today I want to do two things. One, I want to create a plan. Again, if you don't know how to do that, how to create the ARM template and etc., just go initially into the plan that you created. Just scroll down. There is something called as the export template. If you look at the export template out here, it has a template which gives you something called as a plan, which tells you how to, let's say, go ahead and create a plan out here. What is the name of the plan? What is the tier of the plan and all these things out. And it is now called as something known as server farm. The resource identifier name for a plan, what Microsoft uses, is called as a server farm out here. So virtual machines are called Microsoft.compute/virtual machines. App service plans are called Microsoft.web/server farms out here. App services are called Microsoft.web/sites. The app service plans are called as sites out here. So let me go ahead and do one thing. Let me go into my VS Code and I'll say ARM plan. It's now telling this is an application service plan that you would, let's say, go ahead and create for using this particular, let's say, template out here. You would, let's say, have something called app service plan, and I'm saying app service plan is now being created. This is the first block of code wherein it is telling me what is the plan name, or what is, let's say, the name of the plan out here. What is the type of the plan, which is Microsoft.web/server farms. This is, let's say, the identifier. API version is something that I'm not, let's say, editing out here. Location, it's telling wherever your resource group is, you can go ahead and, let's say, create your, let's say, app service plan inside that particular location. SKU, which means what is the plan capacity that you have, meaning do you want an F1 or do you want an S1? You have multiple things like F1, S1 and all these things. It won't load, I believe. So you have the F1, you have the B1 and all these things out. So it's now telling what is the plan capacity and how many instances of the virtual machine that you want to be running in the background. Meaning you can have multiple VMs that are running in the background to support your app services or to support your, let's say, website out here. In my case, I just need one virtual machine that is running in the background. We'll talk about how do you increase the amount of capacity and all these things that you get here. And once you look at the template here, again, tags is something that I don't need. And then you have the properties. In the properties, it just tells you what is the name of the app service plan out here. So what I'll do is I'll go to my parameters. I'll say new parameter. I'll say app service plan name. Again, I am someone who goes ahead and parameterizes a lot of things that I can. I will say SKU, meaning is it F1, is it B1, whatever it is. I'll go ahead and I want to, let's say, create all these things out. And I want to give an allowed values here, telling that I can do an F1, I can do a B1, or I can do something called as an S1 out here. These are the three allowed values that I want a user to go ahead and select from. And what I'll do here is instead of giving app service plan name 1, I'll say it is parameters. I'll say it is app service plan. Location, you can also go ahead and, let's say, parameterize your location out here, but I just want to, let's say, go ahead create it wherever my resource group is there. So I'm good with this. In the capacity, I'll say it is parameters. I'll say it is SKU. This is just a plan creation. This is just a plan that I created. The next thing that I would create, again, if I just click on this one, is just creating something called as the app service plan out here. The second thing that I want to do is go ahead and do something called ARM hyphen web hyphen app. It's a web app that I want to go ahead and create. And in here, it now has me telling what is the name of the web application, what is the type, Microsoft.web/sites, and then the API version, location. Tags again optional in nature, so I'll remove this out. Very importantly, there is a dependency clause. Again, as I said earlier, you can only go ahead and create a web app if you have a plan in place. And the name of the plan is something like the app service plan out here. Again, this is something that I need to change. I'll say parameters app service plan. So now it's telling it depends upon Microsoft.web/server farms and the name of the plan. So you can change this to parameters, service plan name out here, and then the name of the web app again, and the name of the plan. So wherever I have the name of the plan, I'll just change this to parameters and then app service plan name. Again, for the web application, I'll just go ahead and create one more parameter telling it is a web app name out here. So I'll just put a comma and say web app name. I'll just scroll down. I'll say this is parameters web app name. In here, I'll just change this to parameters web app name. So I have all these things in place. And now if you look at the template, it has a site, an app service plan, which is under something called as an app service, or sorry, a web app, which is under something called as an app service plan out here. So name here is a web app name out here and etc. So I'll just close this out, save this template, and I'll just save this template as something like, let's say, in JSON format, and I'll just go ahead and give something called as a web app ARM dot JSON or web app ARM out here anyway, as a .json file out here that I create. Again, I have my template, and this time around, till now we've been going into the Azure portal and deploying using something called deploy custom template. We've been deploying all these templates out here. We said deploy a custom template. We said build your own template, took the template and then deployed this out. In this case, in today's case, I don't want to deploy it using the Azure portal. I want to use a simple PowerShell script to create a resource group. Using the same PowerShell script, I want to deploy my template. Even that is possible without even going into the portal. I'll just go ahead and create a resource group. I'll say new -AC resource group. The name of the resource group is something like test RGPS PowerShell. I'll say the location of the resource group, something like East US 2. And I'll end up creating a resource group firstly, under which I can go ahead and deploy my template into. So the resource group is created. So if I go back here, I should in a minute go ahead and see something called as a test RGPS. This is something that I need. After which I will now go ahead see where my file is. So this is, let's say, where I created my PowerShell file, sorry, my ARM template file. I'll just go ahead and do a CD into it. And if I look at if I just do a list out here, I have something called a web app arm.json. This is the file that I want to, let's say, deploy it into Azure without having to go ahead and creating, let's say, something called as a custom deployment into the portal. I now want to use a script. So what I'll do is that I now have a command line called new hyphen az resource group deployment. An az resource group deployment tries to deploy an ARM template into an already existing resource group. And a couple of parameters out here, I'll just a couple of parameters out here, like the name of the deployment. I'll say this is an app service deployment. Please make sure that whatever name that you're giving here doesn't have any spaces. It can be any name out here, just a name that you're giving to your deployment. So the resource group name here is called test RGPS, which I just created. And then there's something called as the template file. Where is your template file is what Azure is asking me. The template file is in the same directory. So I'm doing a dot backslash, picking up this particular file called web app arm.json out here. And if I execute this out, which is new -AC resource script deployment, it's telling what is the name of your plan. It's asking me here what is the name of the plan out here. I'll say this is something like demo PS plan. It's asking what is the SKU. I'll say it is F1, and then it is asking me what is the web app name. I'll say demo PS web app ARM US East 2, something like this, and I'll say enter. So I'm giving all the input parameters to my PowerShell, and I'm using a command called new-az resource group deployment with the name of the deployment, the resource group name, and the file name. I'm not even touching the Azure portal. I'm not even going to the Azure portal. I'm coming up with the command line entirely. And in here, if you go inside the resource group, there is under the resource group, there is a section called deployments. We come under the deployment. There is now a deployment that I'm doing called app service deployment from my local machine, which is created something called as a plan. And after creating a plan, it's creating the app service in the background. So without you having to go ahead into the portal, sometimes you might not have access to go to the portal at all. So in those cases, again, if you see this, just went ahead created these two things out here. In those cases, you can use this command called new-az resource group deployment. Again, there's a whole list of documentation for it, telling what is new-az resource group deployment, what are all the syntax examples. For example, it says what is the new-az resource group deployment, the name of your deployment or the resource group name in which you want to deploy, the template file that you want to give. And once you do an enter, it'll just go ahead ask you for a couple of things like what is the parameter name. Like for example, here in my case, when I deployed this, it was asking me what is the app service plan, what is the SKU, what is the web app name, and etc. Again, if you want to declare it before you want to run this command, you can just use your command line and give additional parameters out here, like hyphen app service plan name, and you can declare your name out here. Or you want the SKU, you can declare the SKU as F1 or B1 or whatever it is. If you want to give additional parameters like web app name, you can declare all the parameters on the runtime before you want to execute this out. But if you just want to execute the command here, the command will itself identify that yes, there are a couple of parameters that you need to pass, and all these parameters can be passed directly to the PowerShell console, and even that works out here. So a new-az resource group deployment kind of makes things easier on you without going into the Azure portal, and you can just go ahead and deploy things out here and create multiple services that you need. Yes, any questions still here? Can you create multiple web apps using copy index? Yes, you can create multiple. Yes, any more questions here? Good, please.
We can't see allowed values in PowerShell.
You can't say allowed value. Yes, you can't see allowed values in PowerShell. Yes, that's true.
What if you give default values?
What if you give default value? So you can give default values, but giving a default value will, let's say, reduce the reusability of your template. So you can give default value, shouldn't be an issue, but you'll end up deploying the same template again and again. Is any more questions? Okay, disaster recovery, drill, VM backup. No, these are not being covered. This is something that we are avoiding covering disaster recovery, ASR, and all these things out. Because if I end up covering this, then I won't be able to focus on DevOps out there. Start, stop. This is already being covered. Start, stop, deallocated. This is already something that we have covered this out. Backup services is something that I'm not covering out there. Is any more questions here?
We can create a JSON. We can create load balancer using JSON.
You can do anything using JSON. Anything that is there in the Azure portal can be created using an ARM template. Again, since we had an issue with this previous software, I'll check why exactly this issue is and see if there's any alternative. And in tomorrow's demo, we'll cover that as well. But in today's class, please make sure to create app services, and please go ahead and let's say see what kind of okay, sorry, please go ahead and create the app services. You can go ahead and create multiple app services out here and try it out with an ARM template. And very importantly, guys, I tried it out with an ARM template. Can you try app services and app service plans using PowerShell, using something called new-az web app command, directly using PowerShell script out here? And if you want multiple, do try to do a for each out here and see how this works out. And very importantly, if you are using a free trial subscription, app services and app service plans are not supported in all the regions. Try to use North Central US as your region to go ahead and let's say create your app services and app service plans out here. Yes, any more questions? Uh, Someone is asking when will DevOps classes start? It'll start next week. DevOps classes would let's say begin on the next week out here.
Kiran, the infrastructure is completed. Oh, in the admin part,
No, it's
I
not yet. We still have web applications, so it'll take 1 week for me to complete all these web apps and all these things out. After that, infra will be completed, and from the next week, we'll be doing DevOps out here. Okay, anything else, guys, that I can take before we close the session? Okay, thanks, guys, and have a good day ahead. And we'll meet tomorrow. We'll talk more on this one, and we'll see. We'll explore more things on web applications and all these things. So, thank you. Have a good day ahead.